Hello students, welcome back to my channel Kishore Sir Ki Pathshala. We were doing chapter Atoms and Molecules, that is chapter number 3 for 9th Cbse. Let's start. Today what we are going to see is law of constant proportion. What we understand by this law of constant proportion. Lavoisier, along with other scientists, what he did, he noted that many compounds were composed of two or more elements, and each such compound had the same elements in the same proportion, irrespective of where the compounds came from and who prepared it. Now, what we understand by this? Now, let's take a simple example of water, right? Suppose the source of water is lake or the source of water is a river or water is prepared in a laboratory. From whatever source the water is prepared, right? What will happen? The elements, that is the hydrogen and oxygen, they will be in the same proportion. So therefore, in a compound such as water, the ratio of mass of hydrogen to the mass of oxygen is always constant, that is 1 to 8. So therefore, if we decompose 9 grams of water, suppose a 9 grams of water is decomposed, what will happen? We will get 1 gram of hydrogen and 8 grams of oxygen. See here, 1 gram of hydrogen and 8 grams of oxygen. Similarly, if we decompose ammonia, right, what we'll get? We'll get 14 grams of nitrogen and 3 grams of hydrogen. Therefore, this leads to the law of constant proportion, which is also known as law of definite proportion. It says that in a chemical substance, the elements are always present in a definite proportions by mass. So, in a chemical substance, the elements are in their definite proportions. By what? By their mass. After finishing this, let's come to Dalton's atomic theory. Now, Dalton talked about matter. He talked about the smallest indivisible particles, right? Whether it is in an element, compound, or a mixture. Let's talk about his theory. So, according to the Dalton's atomic theory, all matters, whether an element, a compound, or a mixture, is composed of a small particle which is called as atom. The postulates of this theory is stated as follows. All the matter is made up of a very tiny particle called as atom. So, if we take a matter and if we go on dividing, we get the small particle. And the smallest particle is what? Is my atom. Right? Okay. Atoms are indivisible. So these are indivisible. We cannot divide it further. Okay. Which cannot be created nor destroyed. We cannot create it nor we can destroy it. Atoms of a given elements are identical in mass and chemical properties. Right. So for example, atom of magnesium will be unique. Okay. An atom of oxygen will be unique one, right? Okay, atoms of magnesium will be similar and atoms of oxygens will be of similar. This will be of one kind. So the chemical properties of all these atoms will be the same for oxygen, and the chemical properties of all this atoms will be the same for magnesium. Atoms of different elements have different masses and chemical properties. Now you see magnesium atoms have their chemical properties different than those of oxygen, right? Atoms combine in a ratio of small whole numbers to form a compound, right? Okay, so for example, if you let's take the example of magnesium reacts with oxygen, I will get magnesium oxide, right? So these combine in a small whole numbers, okay, to form a compound. You won't see a divisibility, half an atom is combining with this. No, it won't happen like that. The relative number and kinds of atoms are constant in a given compound. Okay, so the kind of atoms and the relative number will be constant. Based on this, let's see two questions. Which postulate of Dalton's atomic theory is the result of law of conservation of mass? The postulate of Dalton's atomic theory that atoms are indivisible particles which can neither be created nor destroyed in a chemical reaction, right? So they cannot be created nor been destroyed. Okay, is the result of what? The result of law of conservation of mass. So which postulate of Dalton atomic theory can explain the law of definite proportion? Right. The postulate of Dalton's atomic theory that explain the law of definite proportion is that the relative numbers and the types of atoms in a given compounds remains constant. I hope you have understood today's session. Kindly subscribe and like my channel if you have understood, and please pass down this information to others too. We'll meet in the next section for the details.